teabagging, tunneling, camping, clicking. These are all actions that some consider to be toxic. While some may consider them to be strategic, others consider them to be neither. But what does it really mean to be toxic? Is there a universal measure? If I point after I get a pallet stun, does that make me a meanie? If I tunnel a Nia because she keeps 360ing me into a wall when I chase her, does that mean I make terrible life decisions? Let's talk about it. How's it going, everyone? My name is Eon Slate. I'm a Twitch streamer, mainly for Dead by Daylight. I've been playing the game for what feels like since it came out. I know I started around the time that Freddy was introduced into the game. I think that was the most recent killer when I started playing, so quite some time, a lot of hours spent. When you play a game for that long, of course, you know you're going to come across several different types of players, mostly fun, positive, just want to have a good time just as much as I do. But we all know there are some actions or behaviors in the game that some of us consider to be toxic. Some don't consider them to be anything at all. Some of them consider them to be fun. And that's kind of what the video is. If it's your first time stopping by the channel, welcome, glad to have you here. Like I said in the beginning, I'm mainly a Dead by Daylight content creator, streamer, all that good stuff. For today's video, I just wanted to talk about something that it seems we all kind of have different feelings, different beliefs on, and I just wanted to kind of touch on that and go through it. So what is toxic? For the sake of this video, we'll say that being toxic is when you do something that serves no specific benefit for either side at that time and can only be logically perceived as mean or rude behavior. So first up, we'll talk about teabagging. Now I know we've all kind of done it to some degree. Some of us really can't wait to do it. Some of us kind of do it just to say thank you or whatnot. But let's talk about it. Is teabagging toxic or not? So first off, I want to talk about, as a gamer, how I've seen teabagging implemented in other games. I think we can go ahead and just be all the way honest and upfront with teabagging off the top. It's always been a taunt. It's always been a way that we taunt each other in video games, especially FPS. I remember teabagging being a thing way back during the Halo, like the original Halo multiplayer days. You would get a kill or you get revenge on somebody, you walk over their body, you teabag. That's always what it's been. We did that. Some people still do it in Call of Duty or any type of, online multiplayer. And that's always been what it is. It's a taunt. But let's go a little deeper. So is there a strategy to teabagging? I've heard lots of players say that there is no strategy for teabagging. It's just to annoy the killer, just to make the killer have a bad day. While I do agree that a lot of people teabag to annoy or to get on the killer's nerves, I can also understand a player saying that it is used as a strategy. I think it depends on when you use it. If your teabagging makes a killer totally drop chase with everyone else and sticks to you, and you know as the survivor of that squad, you're the best runner, or you're the person who's best in chase, and you teabag so much that it makes the killer only chase you, and they therefore are basically forfeiting the match because they just feel like, I just gotta get you, I really have to get you, then that kind of makes sense as a strategy. It's an annoying one, but definitely a viable strategy. If you know you're the best runner on that squad and you teabag the killer enough and it makes that killer just chase you only and they lose the match, then technically you had a strategy and you implemented it. It was an annoying strategy, but a strategy nonetheless. And also I'm a killer main, so I don't really see it as much. The times that I do see it, I will say it was totally meant to be toxic. Most of the time that I see teabagging now is at the exit gate. And let's be honest, guys, there is no way we can logically say that teabagging at the exit gate serves some purpose other than, hey, I got you, F you, or I didn't like the way you played the match. We know that that's what we're doing. The thing that I say with that is, let's just be honest. If we know we want to give the other player a big F you at the end of the match, let's just call it that. But I think that it's a little crazy when we try and switch up the narrative and say, I wasn't trying to be some type of way. I've even heard crazy ones. Like I've seen trying to blind the killer at the exit gate and saying I was trying to get more blood points. No. The other thing about teabagging is that it can definitely be used as communication. I know we all do it when we a lot of us do it. I know I do it like when I get heals or when I heal someone else, we do a little light bag. Yeah, that's no problem. We all know that's total just friendly communication as a way to communicate with your squad mates. Nothing wrong with that at all. So in the end, is teabagging toxic? I would say that Most of the time, absolutely. I think most of the time that we use it, we do use it as a big middle finger. As a matter of fact, the only time I really see it in game now is when somebody's back is up against the exit gate and they really want to let me know that they got away. You know, that's like the only time I see it. I really don't see it anymore. So I will say, again, going back to what we kind of established by rule of this video, what does it mean to be toxic? Does it serve any benefit for either side at that time logically? If we're only doing it when we know we're about to escape, that's got to be labeled as toxic in that sense. But if you're doing it in the middle of the match, unprovoked, killer hasn't done anything yet, you haven't done anything yet, and it makes the killer, you know, drop chase with someone else and chase you only, I'm not mad at you for saying it was a strategy in that case. So all in all, teabagging, I think we'll go with mostly toxic, but sometimes strategic. Next on the agenda, we have tunneling. Right off the bat, we can say no matter what, strategy or not, tunneling is very annoying to go against. Again, I'm a long time killer main, basically have been strictly killer since I started playing this game back in 2016. I do play Survivor a little bit more now, but still definitely a killer main. But with that, I can understand that it is, you know, definitely an annoying thing to go against. I'm not going to say I've never tunneled. I do, whenever I do play matches though, I do try and be fair. You know, if I hook somebody and then your teammate unhooks that person, I make sure I don't chase the person who just got off hook. Not because I'm waiting out BT, but because I know that's not really a fun way to play the game. And I'll be honest, in some ways I've probably lost matches by trying to play the game in a fair way. But, you know, I like to try and attempt to give everyone a chance at least. Unless you were being toxic beforehand, then I might not be so fair. But for the most part, I try to give everyone a fair shot. Alright, so is there a strategy for tunneling? A lot of killers and a lot of players would say absolutely there is certainly a strategy for tunneling. Whether that is applying early pressure or having to play catch up in the end, just like the teabagging, it's an annoying one, but definitely viable if it works. And then going back to what we said in the beginning, is it something that does not logically serve a specific benefit for either side at the time it's happening? Definitely heard players say there's no reason to tunnel in the beginning of the match. And I would agree. As a lifelong killer main, I do not tunnel at the beginning of the match. I try and distribute the pain evenly, so I do not tunnel at the beginning of the match. But if another killer were to say, well, it's 4 of you, I'm trying to establish early pressure, and I'm just gonna focus on somebody at the beginning of the match, I personally think that's not very fun. But if that person were to say, well, hey, I was trying to establish early pressure, we gotta admit, that is establishing early pressure. But then the counter argument to that is, are you really establishing early pressure? See, there's layers to this, really. If you tunnel a specific survivor who is really good in chase, then you could have distributed that pressure to other players. So you end up tunneling someone that is really good at getting away from you. In turn, your tunneling can backfire in that way, because you chased someone who was really good in chase, and it allowed the other survivors or players who may not be that good to gain the pressure on you because they're flying through gens. So in that case, you kind of can say that you're establishing early pressure, but if you don't really solidify your hooks quickly enough, it'll backfire. I mean, look, let's be honest. If you're playing killer, you have the responsibility of watching over everything that's happening across the map for the entirety of the match. So to answer our question for today's video, is tunneling toxic? Because whenever it is happening, it does serve a direct benefit for the killer. I know a lot of Survivor mains are gonna hate me for this. I'm gonna have to say no, that one's not toxic. And I know that sounds crazy coming from the killer main. It's like, oh, of course you would say that, you're a killer main. But again, is it something that serves a benefit for one side at the time that it's happening? And when it happens, it's extremely annoying and it makes me want to DC the match. And that's why some survivors do. So I guess at this time you'll probably say, well, where's the line? Because you're serving your benefit. Where is there a line with that? And I have to say, not really. And that counts for the survivor side as well. You're trying to do what you have to do to, beat the killer, to escape and have as many of your teammates escape as well. So you may do things like body blocking or making sure you run toward the killer right when you're off hook to make them, if they swing, then they hit you. They don't get that hit off of your healthy teammate. That's super annoying if you're the killer. Definitely a viable strategy, and we know players do it all day long, every day. That serves a direct benefit. You're you're doing these things because you're trying to win. And I guess that goes back into the question that some of us have had, which is DBD competitive? And I will say, inherently, yes. I think whenever there's an online multiplayer game where there are teams, it's going to be competitive. Now, yeah, this is not some high stakes tournament. Yeah, it's not that. But at the end of the day, it still is you versus another team. And I think technically, or at least by definition, you're competing to win, So it's competitive, but I think it's a lighthearted, fun type of competitive. At least that's what it should be. All right, next we're going to talk about camping. Is there a strategy to camping? Here's one that I will say is a weird one. The camping, it really does not give you a direct benefit. It may feel like you're kind of securing a kill, but all the time you're wasting standing there, one, you're not having fun. So it's not fun for either side. It's not fun for you because you're not chasing anybody, and it's not fun for the survivors, or especially the survivor on hook, because it's like, man, I'm trying to play the game too. Let me play the game. The time that you spend making sure one survivor goes, you could be applying pressure to the rest of the survivors. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with that one. The reason I say there's maybe a small gray area for camping is if you've had a terrible match, you've only gotten maybe 2 to 3 hooks the entire match and there are no gens left, the exit gates are powered, and you're trying to secure at least 1 kill. Then we can say, just like earlier, there's a direct benefit now because you may not gain a lot by leaving that secured kill to go chase other people. However, that would be the fair thing to do, is to say, all right, you're hooked. I'm going to go chase somebody else, even though I know this one's probably going to be an L. The thing about it though, is that while some killers may think that, some matches don't always go that way. There have been times where I thought the match was over. I might have gotten like 3 hooks the entire match, and I hooked 1 person at the end, and maybe this is me, kind of just having a lot of experience with killer, but because I applied the pressure to the other players, they started making mistakes. So you may think the game is over, but you end up with 3 kills because somebody was trying to play too aggressively, and you end up getting 2 downs at the end and that 1 hook. So now you've gotten 1 player on hook, you've downed 2 other players that were playing too aggressively. If you apply pressure to that last person and they leave, now you've gotten 3 kills when you would have instead maybe only gotten 1. So it's definitely worth it to not camp. So, is camping toxic? By the rule we set in place earlier in the video, technically no. However, don't click away from the video just yet. I will say that this one does fall into the toxic category. By our definition that we said in the beginning of the video, I guess you could say not really, because you believe you're gaining a direct benefit, but it's so detrimental to yourself and the fun that you're having and the progress you could be making and the fun of the survivor, I'll have to put this one in the toxic category. Hopefully I didn't lose too many survivor mains with the way I started that one, but I will say that pretty much camping is going to be toxic. All right, next we're going to talk about clicking. So, is there a strategy to clicking? So first off, I remember a time in this game where clicking, you could click the flashlight a whole lot like quicker than you can now. I think they nerfed like you being able to how quickly you could click the flashlight for that reason. Or I don't know if it was for that reason, but I do remember you being able to click the flashlight a whole lot faster. So we can start off by saying, yes, clicking is definitely used to try and annoy the killer, just like teabagging generally is. But by our logic that we applied in the beginning of the video, I'm going to keep going back to that. Does it serve a benefit for either side at the time of you doing it? Well, I guess this one is kind of similar to teabagging in the case of it matters when you're doing it. If you see that you have a teammate who's struggling in chase and you run into the killer's field of view and you kind of click once or twice and you know that you're a really good survivor, you're a really good runner, and then the killer drops that chase to chase you, and then you end up running the killer for 3 gens, I'm sure it was annoying to the killer, but by rule, you gain something by clicking and being somewhat annoying, and it works. So I would say that's not toxic. It can definitely feel as though it is because it's annoying, just like the tunneling. But if you use it in that way, I would say by rule that you were able to gain something for your team from it. You were able to defend your teammate and also force the killer to waste time. However, most of the times where I've seen clicking especially back in the day, is when you're already chasing someone, they're giving you a hard time, you're not able to catch up to them quickly enough, and they're like turning around clicking at you while you're chasing them. They drop a pallet and they click. Then I will say, if you're using a flashlight to click in chase, I gotta say that's toxic. And of course, this is not the rule of the game, it's just the rule that I'm setting for this video. Going back to that, you're not gaining anything from either side logically by doing it during chase. It might, you may be doing it for fun, you may be doing it because you think it's funny, then that's cool, you're doing it because you think it's funny. But just from an objective point of view, if you're doing it in chase, the killer's already chasing you. So it's just like teabagging. If you teabag after you drop a pallet, you're just trying to say F you. And that's okay, but I would say that that's gonna fall under toxic. But to be fair, if you are clicking to try and help your teammate, and it makes the killer drop chase and chase you, that's viable. That would be a strategy. And just on a quick side note, maybe you guys can say in the comments, something I never understood is, and I still don't understand, it's kind of new, is like when a survivor is about to go down and they click the flashlight right before they get hit, right before they get downed. I guess it's just like a way to kind of be funny. I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me what that one means, or what that one's about, because I have no idea. Still don't know what that one's about. Just to wrap it up a little bit, just a few things about, the whole playing to win misconceptions. And, like I said earlier, I think that the objective of DBD, you want to have fun. You want to kind of, have all your skins and your cool weapons and your cool killers and your cool powers and all that. So you want to have fun while you're in the matches. And I think that is absolutely the goal. That's the goal for me. That's the goal for other players. I think that's the goal, is you want to have a good time. You are playing a video game, so you want to have a good time. But I do say, I do feel personally, if it's multiplayer co-op, then no, not at all. No competition. It's just meant for you to have fun together. But if you're playing multiplayer versus, where it's one team versus another, you are in a competition. You have an objective. If you're the killer, your objective is to stop 4 people from escaping. If you're the survivor, your objective is to make sure all 4 people escape, or at least yourself. So both sides are going to do things that I think warrant, their actions. And I think we've kind of touched on that in today's video. I've seen people say that body blocking is unfair, or it's toxic, or it's whatever. I will say as a killer main, it is 100% annoying to deal with. But when it happens to me, I understand what the other team is trying to do. They're trying to gain some pressure back. They're trying to defend their teammate, and that makes sense. Again, we're having fun, but we are trying to win, and that's okay. All in all, hope you guys have had a good time today. If you decided to click on the video, definitely hope that you enjoyed it in some way. The thing that I say again about myself is that I like to be very balanced and empathetic and understanding of other players in this game. Obviously I love this game. I've been playing it for years and years, still playing it, looking forward to new content all the time. So definitely, I think Behavior knows they've got a lot of support and love behind this game. I hate to see all the flack they get whenever they say anything. It's like there's a whole slew of just do this better or do this better, and there's nothing is ever perfect. But I do think Behavior is, not to sound like the meme, but I think they're doing a pretty good job so far. I really do. I'm one of those players that thinks that the game is in a good spot. Obviously, I'm sure some of you would disagree, and that's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong if you disagree with something that I said in this video. So if you're going to comment, let's talk about it, but let's have a healthy discussion. Let's have a healthy debate. Let's talk about these things, about this game that we love so much, and say, oh, well, I think this is this because, hey, this thing, you never know. You might say something that I didn't think about, or I might say something that you didn't think about, or someone else, or, you never know. There's always more to be learned. If you like what you heard, liking and subscribing helps me out a ton, especially while we're trying to grow the channel. And again, feel free to voice your opinions down below. Until next video, stay safe, and I'll see you in the fog.